Welcome back. Let's take you here now. UKZN's Environmental Fluid Mechanics Lab has launched a website with information on safety of water at popular beaches in Durban. The website, called Wozolwandle, was in the wake of increasing sewage pollution along the coastline. It's also meant to provide relief to fears of E. coli levels at Durban beaches. Now, let's discuss this further. We are now joined via Zoom by University of KwaZulu-Natal's Environmental Fluid Mechanics Lab co-director, Dr. Justin Pringle. Dr. Pringle, thank you so much for your time. I would imagine that the development of this website was to address just some of the concerns that beachgoers, in Durban particularly, are experiencing because of just the high levels of E. coli, that has been reported, and also just the confusion in terms of is it or is it not safe, to go to the beaches in Durban.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. Yeah, that's exactly it. So my colleague and I were having a discussion at the end of last year about, the state of our beaches, in the sense of nobody really knew what beaches were open and what beaches were closed. And, that also coupled with the kind of natural backlog that occurs when you take a water sample and analyze it in a lab and provide that information to the public. So we just wanted to get this information to users so that they could make real time and future plans on where they want to swim and then also just to provide some useful information to the tourism industry, because they've been so hard hit by all of the COVID impacts and arguably by the state of our beaches at this point in time.
So talk to us about, the actual use of the website. So people would then enter the website, Wozolwandle, and will be given up-to-the-minute information in terms of which beaches are safe. Is this across, all beaches?
Yeah, so currently, when somebody logs onto the site, they'll see the state of the beach in real time. So I'll explain a bit on how we do that. But essentially, the model has been set up from the Durban Harbour all the way to Umgeni, and then we report information to the public through the website at beaches where Talbot Labs are doing a lot of their observations. So just a bit on how the model does this. What we do is we divide this beach up into various cells, and we account for all the things coming into each one of these cells, which is really just the distance between the beaches. And we use fundamental physics to explain how the polluted water moves once it enters this coastal zone. Once we run that model, so we run it twice a day, and it pushes data to the website, and then the model will provide users with that information. We also take into account forecast data. So we get global forecast model output from the NCEP guys in the US, and we run the model on the forecasted data. So it's forecast model output so that we can provide predictions. And then every time Talbot Labs release their observations, we then feed that into the model to improve its predictability, to keep it in a live update sense.
I have to say, this is, a phenomenal, invention and a tool to be used, by South Africans, and particularly also tourists, potential tourists. But the fundamental issue, we've seen sewage pollution increasing, particularly along the coastline. What need is there for that to be addressed? Because at the end of the day, we know the dangers that E. coli and other diseases cause, to those that will be visiting those beaches. Are you in conversation? Are you working with other departments, to address that issue?
Yeah, so that's a very good point, and there's probably just two things we should touch on. So E. coli is not dangerous. It's just an indicator that's used to tell you if there's dangerous stuff, pathogens in the water. So, E. coli is just a bacteria that's found in our guts. And so when you pick it up in a water sample, it means that there's fecal matter in the water, which is indicating that there's bad water. So in terms of an indicator, it's very useful in rivers and freshwater systems. But as soon as you get into these marine environment, it's not a very stable indicator. Which means that it can decay rapidly because of things like UV. And that means that even though you may be measuring low E. coli values, it is quite possible that the bad water is still around. So really, that's what we wanted to try and create a conversation about this, and that's why we also developed this app so that people could start talking about it. In terms of what needs to be done, I think that's pretty much all summarized in the Green Drop report. And there needs to be there's a lot that needs to be done to address these issues. But also just to note that it is a global problem. So we weren't the first to make a website like this. So along the west coast of the US, they also have a similar app. And the point is, whenever you have these urban areas or developed areas, cities that are located on your beach, you are always going to run into problems like how do you deal with your wastewater? What happens if your sewage plant breaks down? And just the natural dirty state of most cities. Whenever it rains, that rainwater is going to collect all of that dirt and channel it into your stormwater drains, which then go out into the sea. So this is just a natural problem. And so we wanted to create a conversation around this and then to try and develop solutions. So to do that, we are teaming up with Talbot Labs. We have teamed up with our cellular biologists and ecotoxicologists at UKZN. And yeah, we want to go out there and characterize what is actually in this water to see if we can also trace it genetically to its origin. If we can do that, then at least we can provide city planners with a tool that they can use to allocate funds specifically to perhaps wastewater treatment plants that are not performing correctly.
Dr. Pringle, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Dr. Justin Pringle there from the University of KwaZulu-Natal.